good with it, YouTube? You already know, Big Flacco with a convict's perspective. You already know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna smash, dash, slide on through that little bit of energy. As you can tell by the title, man, and the thumbnail, we're gonna discuss the video that was dropped this morning by one Mundo Mendoza in regards to the Nuestra Familia deep secrets. And you're gonna have a shocker for me right now in regards to this issue. Mundo is 100% accurate on this video. You know, all three of these individuals, Freddy Gonzalez from San Diego, Black Jess from Chiquez, and Chalo. You know what I mean? They were from the original NF when the NF had the Padrino system. Many of them already fell out of favor between the years of 71 and 74. Black Jess was killed, of course, because it was revealed not only was he an informant, but during this time area, he was trying to forge a truce with the Mexican Mafia as well. So they ended up taking him out. As far as Chalo's been on the list, I think all the way back to 72, 73, around that time era. They did an attempt on his life as well. Memorial Day weekend, I want to say 1977 or 78. That weekend they had an NF member named Morris Chipmunk was killed, as well as a citizen that just came home from the military. That shooting transpired, like I said, in Bakersfield. In the process of what was going on, David Batista from Bakersfield as well was shot. And the whole purpose of going over there was to take Chalo out for his actions. They believed he was also working with the administration against the NF, but yet there was never any proof of any debriefing reports. Chalo ended up hitting the system sometime in the 80s with an E number, but he slid under the radar. As far as Freddy Gonzalez, Wolfie from San Diego, not much is really revealed about that individual, whatever happened to him. He was old school, an original one. And so, you know, the claims about Alpha Dog and so forth, man, are basically true claims. This is during the time era of the NF between the years of like 68 to 72. Many of these individuals ended up falling off later on. The whole different evolution of the NF started to occur around 72, okay? Pre-72, we already know, was a whole different game, man. There was an individual named Wedo that had DVI for a minute, and homeboy after homeboys were getting hit over there, man. And what ended up happening was an individual named Peanut from Stockton ended up taking over. And see, back in those time eras, between the years like when the NF first established itself, each Yarrow was ran by each Familiano kind of separate. Yes, they had their constitution and so forth. They had their old Padrino system. It wasn't until around 1972 when they kind of made modifications to the Constitution. One Fig from Hayward was transferred from San Quentin to DVI with a new Constitution. And in this Constitution, it also elected to put one Babo Sosa in charge. And see, this is what people don't really realize, is that the NF took a different course around this time era. And by around 74, they started to separate individuals. The validation clampdown, you know what I'm saying? 74, 76, they started separating them, putting them in different yards and so forth, man. And I was listening to Mundo spill, and everything is pretty much, I gotta say, it's pretty accurate, 100%, man. There's no, nothing he's wrong. There's no errors. There's really no discrepancies on a lot of things, man. The one thing I think even Mundo will probably acknowledge is that the NF's heyday wasn't until later on. Wasn't until Babo Sosa took control and they implemented the whole different procedures. The only thing where the NF became wrong was two things. One, they went on the recruitment frenzy and they started to recruit just anybody. Therefore, they had to remove a lot of individuals. A lot of deaths occurred. That was the biggest mistake they made, was the recruitment level. Instead of quality, they went for quantity for a minute, and they ended up having to whack all kinds of fools. But yeah, previously, before all that, man, you know, the NF did have some individuals like that were kind of have faulty tendencies. You know what I'm saying? What the NF started in the beginning for was a protective faction to protect themselves from and the people that were going through different type of oppression. By 72, that whole direction went a different course where it became a mob activity. It became an organization. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of things that were occurring is the drugs got involved. You know what I'm saying? That was the common theme, the common issue. You know what I'm saying? The Soledad incident in the movie theater where two people were killed. You know what I mean? Then they ended up taking another individual. I want to say, what the hell was his name, man? I was told about it yesterday. The MA member ended up taking another NF member up in the cell in Soledad. They ended up killing him there. So there was all kinds of different relationships at that time, you know what I'm saying, going on between these groups to where they could coexist. You know what I mean? They talk about Louis from Mafia, who was at one time an original MA member who left, who also had a big impact in writing the first Padrino Constitution. All that was amended later on down the lines. So everything is pretty much that Mundo's saying. I got to agree with the most part. There's maybe a little bit of discrepancies on some things that maybe he's aware, but maybe are being, presented a little bit different to him. Yeah, the whole course of everything he said is pretty accurate, man. They ended up taking out a couple individuals over people that were working with that particular IGI officer over there in San Quentin. And during that time frame, man, a lot of these individuals that were actually recruited into the NF, man, like between the years of like 69 to 71, did so for protection, for fear out of the Mexican Mafia. And like I said, the original members, like you said, man, were recruited like around Soledad. San Quentin is where the recruitment started. I've already discussed who were part of that foundation, from Chalo Hernandez, Bruce Weddle Morgan, John Lips Valdez, I'm saying all kinds of different individuals, man, were very influential in the beginning of the NF, which was more about a protection for the people against oppression and so forth. It changed its course by 72. After all those numerous murders, the NF went in a whole different direction. That's the time the Constitution came out. That's the time a lot of murders occurred, actually. A lot of MA members at that time did a lot of movidas, a lot of NF members, as well as a lot of ABs did a lot of hits. And a lot of those hits, sometimes the MAF took credit for my understanding. I wasn't there, though. For instance, Lugo over there in Soledad, they say it was an AB-MA hit, but it was actually an AB member named Woodsy that did it. So, like I'm saying, though, the whole transition changed around 72. The Constitution first touched down in DVI, where Baba was, in 1972, with one young NF member named Fig at that time. And, at the conclusion of the end of 72, you had two very crucial murders that occurred. You had Cheyenne that was killed, as well as the AB member Steve Hadley. Okay, but previously, before that, there was a lot of individuals that weren't taking action because they rather get high, and there was interactions and relationships up to that point. Like there was a little bit of peace going on between the years of like 69, 70, 71, around those time eras. You know what I mean? And the course of the NF went in a whole different direction. There was a lot of separation amongst these groups, and there was killings on both sides, and a lot of them were basically associates of both sides. You know what I mean? There's a few that you can question whether membership, but I'm not going to continue to go back and forth about who was actually an NF member, who was actually an MA member, and so forth, man. People are going to believe what they want to believe and say what they've got to say. There's a little bit, always more than what meets the eyes on these situations. You know what I mean? But anyways, yeah, I was checking out Mundo's spill. It's pretty good, man. His stuff's pretty, I talked to a lot of old timers. You know what I'm saying? They said that there's a lot of stuff that they feel like he's really strongly accurate. There's some stuff that they feel like he's being passed secondhand information where he may have been in the know, but not present. So it's a little bit different than having hearsay information through, debriefing reports, other people who have reported what happened. Because everybody always, at that time would take the information that they received from their informants and they would kind of sometimes twist the narrative. You know what I'm saying? But other than that, man, there's not much I can sit there and say anything negative about this spill, man. I think we all know that the NF's strong heyday started to occur around 75 to 76 and on forward. And then the indictments caught a big backlash, adverse effect upon the organization. That's where they went underground. But between those years, man, of basically 76 to 81, the NF were whacking a lot of dudes, man. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people were getting hit. I think all sides will agree that if it wasn't for the separation that administration did, really like between 74, 76, where they started moving members out, there would have been a lot more casualties, man. But those are the truth factors about everything regarding all this stuff, in regards to Mundo's spill, man. There's a lot more that was going on at that time than meets the eyes. But like, I guess you guys were probably expecting me to come on here and bash a response. You know what I mean? I do tap into Mundo's content. There's a lot of good stuff in there, a lot of accurate information that I cannot discredit. You know what I'm saying? I do talk to old timers at that time, and they agree that a lot of his information is accurate. There's certain things that they don't agree with. But that's neither here nor there. That's his truth. That's his story. But in response to this spill, man, the dark secrets and so forth of Nuestra Familia, this stuff is pretty well known. Those individuals were already out of the organization by the time the NF went in a whole different direction. When it started to try to control the rackets, when it started to focus on mob activities out there in the streets and so forth. One of them they ended up killing. The other one they attempted to kill several times. Like I said, Black Jess was killed, I think, around 74 or 75 for being found out to be an informant. But not only that, for his alleged actions in trying to build a truce between the MA and NF at that time. There was never going to be no truce after the Cheyenne hit. All those murders that occurred in between and all that, the NF never felt that they could ever trust the MA in regards to trying to establish a truce. Now, there was rumblings back then, you know what I'm saying? But that was pretty much shut down because people can't forget the stuff that was happening around 1972. 72 was a year of war of guerra, you know what I'm saying? Where in the beginning, the NF was pretty much getting the blues in a lot of locations. That's a fact, especially due to the AB's influence and impact in joining the MA as forces against the NF. As well as a lot of rogue members were pretty much, not rogue members, but members within the NF were given pretty much free independent reign to run each facility the way that they wanted to run it. You know what I'm saying? Like DVI was a facility at that time where a lot of people were getting hit. You know what I'm saying? You had the OG Hobo, you know what I'm saying, who was attacked by an MA member and AB member. You know what I'm saying? A couple other cats were killed over there. And there was no repercussions by the individual that was running it, which was an individual named Weddle. It wasn't until an individual named Peanut stepped in and said that, you know what, we're not going to tolerate this stuff no more at this facility. And that's where DVI went a whole different direction. And that's where the organization kind of in general started to go, you know, in a different direction. You know what I'm saying? And so people are going to have a difference of opinions of what really occurred back in these time eras. You know what I'm saying? I've been fortunate to actually to have discussions with those that are still alive that were present at that time. And it's just interesting how you can get 4 or 5 individuals who have maybe a different truth of what they experienced and seen, but it all kind of similarly lines up. You know what I'm saying? In the beginning, there was no really conflict between these groups. You know what I'm saying? You know, they were both trying to coexist, but there was those that were rogue members out there on both sides that wanted to add fuel to the fire. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, the NF, you know, historically is still here. They're here to stay. You know what I'm saying? And I don't see them going anywhere, as well as the MA. You know, they're going to still be impactful. They're going to still have their subordinates that are going to fall in line and push their agenda and do their bidding. You know, this isn't the first time that we've heard of different accounts and stories of so forth about individuals that were working with the administration. But these were like the original members that had a whole different focal point when it came to the NF. This was during a time area of the Padrino system, and a lot of their actions were unknown to the rest of the O. Like I said, things started to change with the writing of the new Constitution in 72, around the time when they elected Babel as the general. And, you know, at that time, there was a certain laws within the Constitution that if you had somewhat this many kills, you could be promoted to lieutenant, general, and so forth. But they felt that having too many generals could cause a lot of division within the organization as far as a power struggle. So that's when they implemented just one solo general at that time. You know, the Constitution was revised. Of course, we all know DRJ had a big influence. The individual, I always mess up his name, but from OC, Dyra, he had a big impact, as well as a couple other individuals in the revisals in changing the Constitution in 72 and 73. And so, like I said before, you know, the beginning origins of the NF, like we said, it was about the protection of the people. By 72, it was already going into a whole different direction. And it started to escalate and evolve into a mob organization, just like the MA was, you know what I mean, for protection of its own rackets, you know. And like I said, the NF became very, very powerful within like around 1975. And people don't always, you know, recognize the numerous changes that happened within the organization at that time. It wasn't about no cause or struggle in 72. I talked to one of the old timers, man. He said, cause and struggle. He goes, we didn't have no cause and struggle. He goes, what the NF was founded on was, yes, about the protection of all raza, of all gente. He goes, but eventually a lot of those individuals we fought for turned on us. So by 72, it was all about the familia. It was all about the mob. It was all about the O. The cause struggle terminologies did not even come in until later on in the late 70s, and that was basically given as an identification for the new wave of Norteños that were coming in to hit the system. And a lot of that was attributed to Black Bob and a lot of the individuals out of Gilroy, the Weather Gubbird, and so forth. Those were the identifying monikers that were given to the new Norteño collective that helped push the agenda of the NF when they were in civil war for a minute. There's a lot more things that are going on than meets the eyes, man. So, like I said, good spill on Mundo's part. There's nothing I can really debate or question about it. Certain things, very minor, nothing really major, but he pretty much, there's truth to everything that he said. Anyways, I just want to do a quick little spill, man. I enjoyed that content. It's your boy Flacco. I'm out.